Movies! One thing I forgot to mention last week, just very briefly, just talking about Jon Stewart, I saw his movie Rosewater, which I didn't get a chance to see in theaters, but it came on Netflix, so alright, fantastic. I just want to say that it was a lot funnier than I expected it to be. I mean, it's Jon Stewart, so you'd hope that'd be the case, but yeah, I mean, just based on the material, torture, and, you know, that all this stuff happening in Iraq, you expect that this is going to be kind of a depressing movie, and I mean, I'll say this, it didn't, the story didn't feel like it had the kind of urgency that I guess you hope for with these kinds of movies, and yet it was still very beautifully done, very funny, very well acted, and educational about, I guess you could say, the less extreme kinds of torture, like just being imprisoned for absolutely no good reason, and not being physically tortured, but being kept away from, you know, your pregnant wife. And in some ways, I guess you could say it's a more relatable form of torture, because all of us can kind of understand what it would be like to essentially be put in a professional timeout for, you know, God, I forget how long he was there, but way too long. So Rosewater, really well done. I recommend it if you haven't seen it on Netflix yet. 4 stars with a confidence of 4. Next, while my dad and his wife were here, I started setting up some stuff on his computer. By the way, SSD drives are absolutely fantastic. He got one on my recommendation back when I was visiting him in Nettles Island in March, and he hadn't done anything with it yet, and I was like, you know what, if you want to make your computer run a lot faster, I did this back in like 2010 without upgrading the RAM or the CPU or the, you know, video card or anything like that. Super simple way to make any computer run faster. Swap out the hard drive for a solid state drive. No more moving parts. Amazing what it does. So I set that up for him. And while it was all installing in the background, I set up, you know, all the different programs he uses, went through, got all his license keys for any software he's purchased, and so, you know, a new computer, essentially, which was great. And his computer's from, like, 2009, so it was really cool to see it running a lot faster, and he was really thrilled by that. We're talking about movies. While that was all going on, I was trying to think of a movie I could show my dad and his wife. He had mentioned that, you know, he tried to show movies on the bus, because he does a lot of stuff when he's touring. He runs like a tour company, by the way. Last week he was at Niagara Falls, really fantastic. And they're always trying to figure out something they can play on the bus for everyone that they'll enjoy. He mentioned, for example, they tried to play The Prestige, and a lot of people thought that was too dark, both visually, like on the little crappy TV monitors in the bus, and emotionally. People got too depressed and sad, and were like, man, that was a rough movie. So he was talking about, you know, what's something bright and happy and has a nice message and a well-told story that maybe he could play. And this doesn't necessarily fall into that category, but I was really surprised to hear my dad and his wife had never seen Up. And of course, I've been thinking about Up a lot lately because Pete Docter, of course, did Inside Out, the newest Pixar movie, which was fantastic. I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago. And yeah, Up was the most recent movie he did before that. And I love Up. I think it's amazingly creative and out there and different from any other movie out there, and I just wanted to show it to him. So it was really cool to sit down and see this movie, which I don't think I've watched in maybe 4 or 5 years, with my dad and his wife, and they both really enjoyed it and got a kick out of it. So yeah, all I want to say is Up. If you haven't seen it, I mean, yes, those first 10 minutes are amazing. They will make you cry, and then the rest of the movie, I had to keep saying, like, it gets happier, it's a lot lighter and friendlier, and there's a lot of kind of kind of moments in a good way, not a schmaltzy way. Up's a great movie, 5 stars with a confidence of 5. I think the only other movie I saw this week was Transcendence, a Johnny Depp movie that looked really cool from the previews. I liked the concept, a guy dying and, you know, creating a consciousness version of him in AI. And unfortunately, it was not very well executed. Here's a few quick problems with this movie. One, it's humorless. It takes itself, I don't know if it takes itself as seriously as it thinks it does, or just doesn't think this is a laughing matter. Because in many ways it felt a little bit like an Age of Ultron sort of thing, like what if AI gets too powerful and takes over everything? Whereas, you know, what makes some of the Marvel movies so fun is there's a wisecracking kind of, you know, not too serious energy to the whole thing that keeps everything feeling very light on its feet. This even had Paul Bettany and Rebecca Hall, I think, who is in Iron Man 3. So a couple people who've been in Marvel movies. You even get someone like Cillian Murphy, who, you know, great in Batman Begins, who here is really just kind of a mouthpiece, just spouting off exposition. So not any particularly memorable characters. Johnny Depp's character feels kind of lifeless the whole time, haha, even before he dies, and his relationship with Rebecca Hall doesn't seem that important or meaningful. And then, yeah, it goes into this kind of very rote, not particularly interesting version of an Ultron kind of figure taking over the internet. So yeah, it didn't do much for me. I did watch the thing all the way through. I almost didn't finish it. And here's the other thing too. Rebecca Hall basically becomes the protagonist of the whole thing, where everyone else is like, oh God, no, this isn't your husband anymore. He's doing all these crazy things that he never would have done when he was human. And she falls into the role of the overly emotional, anti-intellectual, like she's a scientist but refuses to listen to reason, and causes so many of the problems and the conflict that keeps the movie going. And that just feels so tired now. Like, let there be an intelligent, rational woman in movies that gets stuff done. And yeah, she can be in love with someone, that's fine, but don't make her a slave to her emotions. That's done. I'm done with that. So anyway, Transcendence, I do not recommend it. Yeah, there's some cool special effects. There's a couple cool special effects, and I did get all the way through it, so 2 stars with a confidence of 3.